The rented room lay deep within a rundown block in South Bronx, the kind of place where if you wandered in after 10 p.m., you might lose your wallet, your phone, or your dignity. I stood in front of the warped door hands, trembling as I held the key. The stench of sweat, rotting trash, and stale cigarettes mixed into something nauseating. The walls outside were smeared with graffiti and filthy slurs. In the hallway, a few men lounged lazily on broken plastic chairs, stained tank tops clinging to their drunken bodies. As I walked past, they paused like a pack of hunting dogs catching the scent of fresh blood. One of them whistled, eyes trailing me up and down with a crooked grin. "Yo, baby girl, what's a sweet thing like you doing here?" "Took a wrong turn, princess." I stayed silent, head bowed, quickening my steps. But my shoes were worn, the soles thin, and the sound of them scraping against the concrete only made them burst out laughing. "You think you're better than us girls, like you come here and end up just like garbage. Don't think dressing modest hides what you really want." I managed to unlock the door, slammed it shut, and stood there gasping, as if I'd just escaped a pack of wild animals. But their filthy laughter, their sharp voices, and those eyes they still pierced through the walls, clung to my ears, haunted me all night. In a room barely 10 square meters, I sat curled up on a moldy mattress, fists clenched tight from fear. I didn't dare cry. I was afraid someone might hear me. I was afraid that if I cried, they'd know I was weak. And if I were weak, I wouldn't survive here. I stacked 3 old books against the door, dragged a broken chair to the window, and tied it shut with a rope my uncle had hastily bought at a local store. He had no idea that in this neighborhood, young women were kidnapped, assaulted just for opening the door at the wrong time. I didn't eat dinner. I didn't sleep. I just sat there back against the wall, eyes wide open, and learned how to survive. A cold draft slipped through the cracks, whistling against my neck. I pulled the thin blanket tight around me, head still against the wall, eyes never leaving the darkness, creeping into every corner of the room. And in that darkness, memories stirred vivid, as if they had never left. I thought of my grandmother, the only person who ever held me without demanding I prove I deserved her love. When I was little, every night before bed, she'd rub my back and whisper, "You are heaven's gift. If no one loves you, I will. If no one keeps you, I will." I once asked her, "Why do you love me so much?" She smiled, her eyes wrinkled, her voice raspy from years of herbal medicine. "Because you have no one, so I will be everything." I used to believe she was the only shield between me and the world, but when she died, it turned out the world had been waiting for that moment. My stepmother, who seemed gentle in front of my father, had never truly hidden her contempt for me. When she still pretended, she'd give me side-eyes, hide food, and treat me like I didn't exist. But once my grandmother passed, she shoved me aside like a stray cat. There was no longer a place for me at the dinner table. My belongings were thrown into the backyard, soaked by rain. When I asked why, she said coldly, "Your stuff dirties this house. You're the result of a mistake, not a member of this family." My half-siblings looked at me like a stain. Once passing by a room, I overheard my older brother whisper to our younger sister, "I don't get why Dad keeps that girl here. One look at her and you can tell she's got bad blood." I heard every word, but no one noticed me standing there because I was used to being invisible. And my father, he didn't hit me, he didn't yell, he just wasn't there. He could spend hours in meetings, hosting clients flying from state to state, but never once had the time to look me in the eye. Once I gathered all my courage and asked Dad, "Do you think I look like you?" He didn't respond. He simply turned away, picked up his phone, and left me sitting there staring at a question no one ever wanted to answer. I don't know what it truly feels like to be called daughter. All I know is I lived in a house where every glance said, "You are a disgrace." One day, my stepmother pretended to drop a wad of cash in the living room. She screamed theatrically. I rushed to help her pick it up, but before I could say anything, I was slapped across the face. "Did you steal it? I knew you'd pull something like this one day." The backpack I always carried was torn open in front of everyone. The money was found inside. I didn't get the chance to explain. No one asked. No one defended me. My father stood there silent, as stone. Then he let out a sigh and said just one thing: "I was wrong to keep you." That same day, I was kicked out of the house. No suitcase, no goodbyes, just a torn backpack and a door slammed shut behind me like every other door that had ever closed on me since I was born. I was not loved, not needed, not seen. And now, sitting in a slum apartment while vulgar laughter echoed from the hallway, I understood I was the product of many wounds, but I wasn't born to rot in the dark. The next morning, I woke up with a sore neck from sleeping curled up all night. No one called me to get up. No one asked, "What will you eat today?" Just the sound of a neighbor cursing his wife, a baby crying, and the smell of burnt food drifting up from downstairs. I washed my face with cold water, dipped a worn-out toothbrush into bottled water, since the sink was clogged. Staring into the mirror, I saw a pale face, bloodshot eyes, tangled hair, and sickly skin. But I realized one thing: I was still breathing. And if I could still breathe, I had to live. I tied my hair back, put on the oldest but most intact shirt I had, and walked 30 minutes to the nearest market. I went shop to shop, grocery stores, bakeries, fast food places asking for work. Most rejected me outright. A few looked me up and down and shook their heads. Some asked for documents. Some said I didn't look trustworthy. Finally, a small Vietnamese restaurant on the corner Pho 79 hired me for the night dishwashing shift. Low pay, $9 an hour, 6 hours a night. No complaining, no days off. You work, you eat. You take humiliation, you survive. The owner said, her voice sharp as a blade. I nodded. No hesitation. I wasn't looking for kindness. I just needed a chance, even the smallest one. That night, I started my first shift. The kitchen was scorching thick with the smell of grease raw meat and dirty water coating the floors. I washed stacks of dishes, hands aching from the cold water mixed with soap, open cuts stinging with pain. The head chef yelled constantly about missing items. Staff slammed pots into the sink like they were smashing their anger into metal. Once, I dropped a pair of steel chopsticks and got scolded to my face. "You think you're some kind of princess here? Act like someone owes you something." I said nothing. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just bowed and apologized, because I knew pride doesn't feed you through the night. When I got back to my room, I didn't have the energy to shower. I just sat on the floor, opened a small notebook, and wrote my first line. Day 1, I made $54. I survived. But I haven't lived. I gave myself 4 hours of sleep. By 6 a.m. the next morning, I walked to the nearest public library and signed up for a GED program, a high school equivalency course for people who had dropped out. And from then on, my days followed the same routine. Mornings I studied. Afternoons I babysat for an Asian American family. Nights I washed dishes. Late nights I taught myself online about skincare, facial techniques, and small business fundamentals. I took notes on everything: how to dry cleanse the scalp for dermatology patients, how to do a facial massage without a machine, how to talk to a client in a way that makes them feel seen. I was building a road with my own hands. No one guided me. No one led the way. Pain was my compass. Each night after my dishwashing shift, I didn't go straight home. I stood beneath the dim streetlight behind the restaurant, pulled out my phone, and re-watched saved videos on skincare. How to treat inflamed skin, proper hand techniques, how to identify different types of acne. I watched them over and over until I knew each step by heart. I didn't want to learn a trade just to survive. I wanted to own something. I wanted to reclaim the right to feel beautiful, to be confident, to lift my head, not just for myself, but for every woman like me, dismissed because of how we looked, where we came from, or how little money we had. I looked into esthetician training centers across New York. Most of the tuition fees were overwhelming: $3,000, $5,000, even up to $8,000 for short courses. I almost gave up. But then I found a small school in Brooklyn with a scholarship program for low-income applicants if they could prove effort and determination. They required an application, a personal statement, and a $1 $200 tuition split into 3 installments, $1 $200. For others, it's a fancy dinner. For me, it was everything. So I started working weekends too. Saturday mornings, I mopped floors and trimmed the garden for an elderly Jewish woman in Flatbush. Saturday afternoons, I looked after an autistic boy in my neighborhood. Sundays, I grocery shopped and cooked for a Filipino family, each week a different dish. I didn't choose the job. I chose purpose. Every night, I wrote in my notebook how much I earned, what I learned, where I wasted energy, what I did wrong. I washed clothes by hand, ate old bread instead of hot rice bought. No cosmetics, avoided cafes, didn't take the bus. I walked through rain with wet books and still showed up to class on time. When the first tuition installment of $400 was due, I handed over the cash with both hands trembling like I was holding something sacred. The administrator looked at me surprised. "How long did it take you to save this?" I smiled gently. "Not long, just since the day I was kicked out of my house." Classes began. I was the first to arrive. I sat in the front row. I wrote down every word the teacher said. I studied every skin tone carefully. I practiced on my classmates for free just to improve my skills. While others talked about makeup trends, I asked, how do we treat skin damaged by counterfeit products? What's the best way to earn client trust without offering discounts? How do you handle clients who are demanding and impatient? The teacher once said, I was doing too much. I just smiled and replied, I'm not learning to become a technician. I'm learning to survive. Every night, I returned to my tiny room, completely exhausted, blistered feet, cracked hands, bloodshot eyes. But deep down, I knew I was still moving slowly, yes, but steadily, toward the light. I had no family behind me, no launchpad, no one paving the way. But I had one thing: I hated the feeling of helplessness, and I was willing to do whatever it took to never go back to that day again. Some nights, under the dim yellow light, massaging my sore arms after a long shift, I'd suddenly feel my chest tighten. Not because the present was hard, but because of the memories I had never dared to admit had scarred me. I remembered my aunt and uncle's house, the place I once thought would be my safe haven after Grandma died. At first, I believed I had been rescued. My uncle brought me home, gave me a small but clean room, bought me new clothes, and asked what I liked to eat. For the first time in a long while, someone seemed to want me to stay. In the beginning, my aunt was friendly, sometimes even joking with me, asking me to help her cook. My younger cousins stared at me curiously, but not unkindly, and I thought, maybe this time I really have a family. But things changed quickly, like a flimsy mask ripped off by the wind. When my uncle went away on business trips, I saw my true place. I wasn't a rescued niece. I was an unpaid helper. I woke up early to cook breakfast, prepare lunch boxes for the kids, clean the house, do the laundry, and pick up the youngest from school. In the evenings, I helped them with homework. When they threw tantrums, I had to stay calm. When they made demands, I wasn't allowed to say no. Only after they went to bed did I dare open my own books. The weak light from the corner of the room stayed on late into the night. No one ever asked if I was tired. No one ever asked if I had eaten. I once overheard my aunt telling a neighbor, "That poor girl, we took her in. But if she doesn't know her place, it'll be hard to live with her long term." Another time, I came home early from school and overheard her talking to my uncle. "I'm really exhausted. She's not what she looks like. The older she gets, the more defiant she becomes." Her teacher called to say she hit someone, that her grades are slipping. "I told you she's impossible to teach." I stood silently behind the door. My uncle didn't respond for a few seconds. Then he sighed and said quietly, "If that's the case, I'll find somewhere else for her." I didn't cry. I didn't dare walk in. I turned away and went back to the bus stop. I sat there the entire afternoon, like a shadow. No one noticed, no one looked for. Now living in a rundown apartment in the slums, working for myself, studying on my own, counting every dollar, sometimes I still ask myself, what did I do wrong? Except trying to survive. I don't envy those cousins anymore. I only wish someone had once told me, "You're okay. Just be yourself. Just study. Just live. You don't have to carry everything just to be loved. But it's okay. Because when no one stands up for you, you have to learn how to stand up for yourself." And I made a vow, I will succeed, not for revenge. I will succeed, so that I'll never again have to stand in front of any door waiting for someone's pity. I still went to school every day. Every lecture, every lab session, I took notes as if they were the only lifeline keeping me afloat in a world where I was constantly drowning, flailing, and no one was reaching out. Life was hard. I had nothing to spare, but I never let myself turn bitter. I still smiled when people shoved past me, still helped elderly women carry bags up the stairs, and still gave up my seat on the train for pregnant women. I believed that when you have nothing, kindness is the one currency that can never be stolen. That day, it was late afternoon. I was on my way home from school, hungry, aching from last night's shift. The wind slipped down my collar and made me shiver, but I hurried on to catch my train. As I was about to cross the street, I saw a mother stopping beside her car on the curb, reaching in for something from the back seat. Beside her was a little boy, about 5 or 6, who darted across the crosswalk, unaware of the traffic light. In a split second, I saw headlights rushing forward. Instinct kicked in. I leapt forward and shoved the boy toward the sidewalk. The car screeched to a halt, its bumper just inches from my legs. People around us screamed, but all I could hear was my own heart pounding out of rhythm. My knees were scraped, my palms bloodied from skidding across the asphalt. But the boy was safe. He sat up, frightened, but completely unharmed. The mother ran over, scooped her child into her arms, and then turned to me. Her eyes were a storm of panic and gratitude. She helped me to my feet, brushed my hair back behind my ear, her voice trembling. "Oh my God, are you okay? Are you hurt?" I shook my head and smiled. "Just a few scrapes." "I'm fine, really." But she didn't let go of my hand. Her eyes drifted to my worn-out shoes, the bleeding knee, then up to my frayed canvas backpack. Her gaze wasn't filled with pity, but with recognition. She spoke quickly, but with conviction. "I own a beauty clinic. I want you to come by. Not as a thank you, but because I think you have something different." I froze. I thought I misheard her. 1 minute ago, I was invisible on the street. 1 minute later, a sophisticated woman with neatly styled brown hair heels and a confident gaze was looking at me as if I had value. I stammered, "You want me to come to your spa? To—" She smiled softly, holding my hand, "To talk. About careers, about dreams, about what I saw in your eyes when you ran to save my son. You're not just a kind person. You have the instincts of a caregiver. And the beauty industry needs people like that, people who love without conditions." I nodded, not out of curiosity, but because for the first time opportunity didn't come through a door, it came through a selfless act. That day, I didn't just save a child. I accidentally saved my own future. 2 days later, I went to the address she gave me. The card read, "The Heart Aesthetics, 57th and Madison," a high-end building nestled between flagship stores of global brands where every step echoed like a heartbeat against the marble floors. I wore the cleanest white shirt I owned, a long skirt to cover the scar on my knee, and a pair of second-hand shoes I had scrubbed all night. The moment I stepped inside, the space took my breath away. Soft white lighting, the faint scent of essential oils, gentle piano music in the background. Everything was elegant, professional, and spotless down to the tiniest detail. Behind the reception desk was a gold-engraved quote, "Beauty begins with truth." I had never seen a place like that before. She was waiting for me, her brown hair tied in a neat bun-tailored white suit, cream-colored heels, but the smile? It was different. Not flashy, not forced, just gentle, like she'd been waiting for me for a long time. "I'm Evelyn Hart. Thank you for coming, Madison." I nodded. "I don't know what I have to say, but I really want to listen." She led me to a quiet room, brewed a cup of herbal tea for me, then sat across, as if we were old friends, not a business owner and a stranger. "I used to be just like you. No one expected anything from me. No one waited for me to show up. But that's why I understand. If you can lift your head while you're at your lowest, that's the strongest position a person can hold." I looked at her speechless, but my eyes had already started to sting. "When you ran out to save my son, you didn't hesitate. That wasn't just instinct. It was the instinct of a caregiver. This industry, beauty and aesthetics, has been mistaken for glamour and fakery. But in truth, it starts from something deeply human. You see someone's pain, and you want to help them feel beautiful again from the inside." She opened a folder on the table and pushed it toward me. "I'm building a training academy for a new generation of specialists, not just skilled, but compassionate. I want you to be one of the first to join our extended internship program." I was stunned. "I don't have money. I don't have a background. I'm just starting." She smiled, her gaze calm, as if she had anticipated that answer. "I know. That's why I'm not inviting you because of your resume. I'm inviting you because of your character. As for the knowledge, the skills, I can teach those, but kindness, no one can teach that, and you already have it." I held the folder in my hands, my heart on the verge of tears, not because I had been accepted, but because for the first time, a successful, powerful woman saw value in me, not as someone invisible, not as a burden, not as a temporary guest. Evelyn looked at me one last time, her voice soft like a blessing. "You don't have to prove anything. Just keep walking. Don't step back." I left the spa, still gripping the folder tightly, and for the first time I walked down bustling Madison Avenue with my head held high on a street I had only ever dared to glance at through a bus window. I began my internship at Evelyn Hart Aesthetics Academy on a Monday morning. New York was bitterly cold, the wind whipping down the avenue in sharp gusts, but my hands were warm because they were holding a freshly printed ID card with my name in bold. For the first time, I wasn't begging for a chance. I had been invited, but as I stepped into the ivory-white building with its marble lobby and refined ceiling lights, I realized I had just entered a world I had never belonged to. The other trainees came from prestigious schools, NY Beauty Institute, Manhattan Academy, and Aveda. They wore chic outfits. Their hair was neatly styled, designer bags in hand. As for me, I wore the simple uniform, provided by Evelyn, hair tied back, nails short and clean. When I walked into the waiting room, their eyes passed over me like an unnoticed flyer on the wall. A blonde girl whispered to the person beside her, "Who's that? She doesn't look like she's from here." Another one chuckled, "Word is she got in because she saved the boss's kid. Probably some kind of charity case." I heard every word, but I didn't react, because I understood in this room they had the confidence of privilege. I had the certainty earned from sleepless nights no one saw. Our first training session was on real skin analysis. We were paired up to handle practical scenarios. I was matched with a student named Marla from LA, who had interned at a spa in Beverly Hills. She looked me over, then said bluntly, "I'll take the lead. You just assist. Stay quiet and learn." I nodded. No argument. But when we began the facial massage on a real client, Marla applied too much pressure, causing the woman to wince. I gently whispered, "You should use circular motions. Not pulling the client's skin is fragile." Marla stiffened, but she didn't adjust. After that session, Evelyn pulled me aside. I thought I was in trouble, but she simply said, "I know what happened in class. Don't shrink yourself. You have knowledge. Don't be afraid to use it." In the following days, I pushed myself twice as hard. I arrived early to wipe down the spa beds before opening. I recorded client feedback after every session. I didn't ask to be recognized. I let my work speak. And then clients started requesting me, "I want the girl from before. Her hands are so gentle." It felt like someone actually cared, not just ticking off steps, once, twice, 10 times. By the third week, I was the only intern entrusted with advanced treatments for VIP clients. Marla began avoiding my eyes. The same person who had once dismissed me now started copying the way I interacted with clients. But I didn't feel proud. I simply wrote one quiet sentence in my notebook: "I don't need to rise by stepping on others. I just need to step more surely, one day at a time." That night, as I walked back to my shared apartment, the familiar smell of garbage still lingered. But my heart felt lighter than ever. I wasn't someone who got lucky. I was chosen because I was worthy. On the 5th week at Heart Aesthetics Academy, I received a message from Evelyn at exactly 6:02 a.m. "Madison, you won't be in class today. You have a special client at 8:30. My client. Prepare carefully. No details, no name, no hint. Just one line that stood out. This is not just a skincare session. It's a test and an opportunity." I arrived at the academy an hour early, holding a handwritten checklist I had worked on all night. Treatment steps, lighting adjustments room, scent humidity, and nonverbal communication techniques. I didn't know who I was about to meet, but I prepared as if every gesture could rewrite the trajectory of my life. 8:29 a.m. The door opened. A man entered first, sharp-cut black suit, thin-rimmed sunglasses, eyes that scanned the entire room in 3 seconds without missing a detail. Behind him was a woman who needed no introduction. Long black hair, neatly brushed behind her shoulders, no visible makeup, yet every feature was flawless. Her eyes didn't just look, they read. They read people. They read the room. They read the truth behind every social mask. And the man walking with her, a strategic brand advisor, for an elite boutique spa chain stretching across the East Coast, where even the smallest decisions can ripple across the entire beauty industry nationwide. They didn't need to project power. They had power. I bowed slightly, keeping my voice steady. "Good morning. My name is Madison. It's an honor to take care of you today." She gave a small nod. "I don't need someone to make me look beautiful. I need someone who understands why I need to feel beautiful." For the next 90 minutes, I didn't show off techniques. I didn't try to educate her skin. I listened to every subtle movement, her breath, facial tension signs of emotional strain. I wasn't trying to create an experience. I was trying to return to her the feeling of being seen, no makeup, no words, no armor. At the end of the session, she opened her eyes and remained silent for a long moment. Then she asked, "Who taught you how to touch someone without making it feel like an intrusion?" I answered quietly, "Life did. It taught me not to expect anyone to heal me, but to learn how to ease others instead." She smiled. Her first smile, soft, real. 3 days later, Evelyn called me into her office. On her desk was a brand expansion proposal and my file. She didn't speak in circles. "The woman you treated that day was Victoria Lane, Senior Strategic Advisor for a global aesthetics investment group." After that session, she asked me just one question. Evelyn looked me straight in the eye. "That girl Madison, has she ever thought about leading a brand of her own?" I was stunned. "I didn't answer," Evelyn said, "because I want to hear it from you. Are you ready?" I clenched my fists slightly, trying to stay grounded as it felt like the world shifted in a single heartbeat. No one is born chosen. But if you live with enough kindness, enough resilience, and enough truth, sometimes you become the one others want to choose. I used to think that if I was good enough, persistent enough, kind enough, the world would accept me. But when the lights finally began to shine on my name, I realized not everyone wants to see you rise from the bottom. The further I went, the more I found myself pushed into windowless rooms where every word carried a double meaning, where every smile could be a knife hidden behind the lips. When I was nominated as Director of Innovation for the new branch, the one who would decide processes, products, and branding, many in the system felt threatened. Because I wasn't from the industry, I didn't belong in this glittering world of beauty. A closed-door meeting was held. I wasn't invited, but I knew because a janitor I once helped quietly left me a note. "They're planning to replace you with someone more manageable." I laughed, not out of fear, but because I finally understood. In this world, real value scares people more than carefully painted lies. They played dirty. One day, I arrived at the flagship spa to find all of my test products had mysteriously gone missing. Another day, a VIP client I regularly cared for had their appointment reassigned to someone else, and I only found out through an automated call center message. Once an internal email I sent with a proposal for a new strategic direction was leaked, and the content was twisted. Rumors spread. "Madison wants to wipe out the entire legacy team." Evelyn called an emergency meeting. Victoria Lane phoned me, her voice low and steady. "This is the moment you must choose, be the one they like or be the one who leads." I didn't hesitate. I've never been the one people liked. But I've always known how to walk alone. Success started to taste like blood. I lost weight. I lost sleep. I'd jolt awake at 3 a.m., gripped by the fear that someone was changing the lock on my office door. I heard the voice inside my head, "Be careful. They won't stab you from the front. They'll let you fall, then record the clip." One night I stood in front of my bathroom mirror. Dark circles, hollow cheeks, scratches on my hands. I didn't recognize myself. Success is a double-edged sword. If you're not careful, you'll use it to cut into your own soul. But just as I was about to let go, I remembered the girl from the slums using 3 old books to block her rented room's door, afraid to cry too loud in case someone heard. I couldn't give up. Not for a brand, not for a title, but if I fell, another girl out there might believe that unless you were born respectable, you'd never stand as an equal among the wealthy. I returned to the office, opened a new file, and began rewriting the entire operational strategy, this time with my signature stamped boldly at the top. No hiding, no dodging, no fear. If they fear my light, I'll make sure it burns bright enough that they can't ignore it. Success in the beauty industry doesn't just come from your hands. It comes from how you hold your spine straight in front of people who didn't come to be beautified, but to test you. One client, an affluent woman in her 60s, owner of 4 restaurant chains across Manhattan, booked a premium hyperpigmentation treatment. She insisted no products with artificial fragrance. I double-checked every ingredient, prepared every motion carefully, but 10 minutes into the session, she frowned. "You're making my skin burn. It feels hot. I'll sue if there's even a single mark." I stopped immediately, checked her skin's pH. Everything was normal. I smiled gently and said, "I understand what you're feeling, but I believe what you're sensing doesn't come from the product. It's because today you didn't come just to feel beautiful. You came hoping someone might notice that you're in pain." She went quiet for a long while, then tears. This week marks the anniversary of my husband's passing. I didn't continue the treatment. I simply wiped her skin with a warm towel, applied a soft layer of moisturizer, and held her hand in silence until she nodded, "Thank you for not running away from my emotions." Another client, a young model with over 2 million Instagram followers, walked into the room with the attitude of someone perched on top of the world. She said bluntly, "You're the real deal. Do you even know how much my face is worth?" Throughout the session, she live-streamed, adjusted her angles, and critiqued my hand movements in real time. While I was applying a collagen mask, she asked, "If I rate you 3 stars today, what would you do?" I replied without a hint of tremble. "Then you'll learn how to test a professional, and I'll learn how to never tie my worth to a star rating." She laughed. She rebooked. By her 3rd visit, she put down the phone and said, "Today, I just want to be a normal person." Clients are people, and people are often more hurt than they are difficult. I've met customers who tried to dodge payment, who threatened 1-star reviews if I didn't throw in freebies, who intentionally lied about appointments to switch estheticians. I didn't fight back. I stood firm, not by toughening up, but by learning to recognize who needed to be heard, who needed healthy distance, and who simply needed to be told no at the right time. Once Evelyn asked me, "Why don't you react when a client crosses the line?" I answered, "Because reacting is instinct, but responding, that's character. And in this industry, character lasts far longer than any comeback ever could. When they can't beat you in skill, when they can't surpass you in quality, they'll resort to the cheapest currency this world has in abundant slander." 1 week before the grand opening of the first branch under my leadership, an industry-level event with over 300 VIP guests, I woke up to my phone vibrating non-stop. I opened social media and saw my name, Madison, being tagged relentlessly in a heavily edited video. In the clip, I appeared to be speaking to another trainee. The audio was distorted, and the part they clipped made it sound like I said, "We should remove people who don't meet our standards from this spa." The caption read, "Former slum girl turned CEO, now looking down on the poor." At the same time, Anonymous accounts began releasing fake messages between me and a manager, accusing me of bullying staff, discriminating, and using media for self-promotion. I was stunned. I never said that. The full sentence had been from an internal training session, referring to eliminating low-quality processes, not people. I called Evelyn. She only said one thing: "I know you didn't do this, but are you strong enough to show the industry you don't need to defend yourself?" I said nothing. But I didn't stay still. With my legal team, we traced the video's origin back to a competitor I had once refused to partner with due to their exploitative pay practices. I didn't threaten. I didn't retaliate. I simply sent a copy of the email exchange between me and their CEO in respectful and transparent language to everyone who had shared the video. And then I posted a short video. No tears, no defense. I've washed dishes. I've been kicked out of homes. I've slept under streetlights. But I've never needed to fabricate stories to rise. And today, I won't tear anyone down to prove I'm decent. I don't fear being judged. I just don't let anyone else write my story. Over 10,000 shares in 2 hours. Former clients spoke up. Trainees defended me. A doctored video could never outmatch a life lived in truth. Victoria Lanes sent me a single email. That's how a leader responds. No noise, no collapse. Just let the truth go far enough. Honor is the easiest thing to attack. But once you choose to stand with it, it becomes the foundation that no one can tear down. I thought the blow to my reputation was the harshest I'd ever endure. But then, the world shut down. COVID-19 swept through like a storm. No warning, no exceptions. The spa was forced to close temporarily. Clients cancelled. Skincare supply chains snapped. Rent was still due. Employees still needed to be paid. The newly launched flagship branch, barely 2 months old, was shut down indefinitely. I remember the first week of lockdown vividly. I sat alone, in the empty boardroom, staring at dozens of booking cancellations and refund requests piling into my inbox. Our financial system was flashing red. I was warned. If we don't secure a secondary investor, the flagship branch may have to be liquidated sooner than expected. At 3 a.m., Evelyn video called me. We sat in silence for a few moments. Then she said, "I can find someone else to manage things. You don't owe me anything. But if you stay, this will be the year you grow faster than life ever allowed you to fall." I chose to stay. Not for pride, not out of obligation, but because I knew if I gave up when things got hard, then I was only lucky, not resilient. So I started transforming the spa into an online studio. I live-streamed free skincare consultations. I mailed mini care kits to loyal clients. I enrolled the staff in online courses to deepen their expertise so they'd be stronger than ever when we reopened. I taught people how to care for their skin with what they already had in their kitchens: honey yogurt oatmeal. I didn't sell, I connected. And one day, a woman messaged me, "My husband died from COVID. I haven't wanted to look in the mirror, but your video reminded me I'm still worth caring for." I read that message in the middle of the night and cried for the first time in months. Not out of pain, but because I realized I was still alive, not just breathing, but doing something meaningful. When lockdowns began to lift, I didn't reopen with ribbon cuttings, champagne, or fanfare. I reopened with real women who had lost pieces of themselves during the pandemic coming back and saying, "Today, I choose to keep living." When the world turns against you, you can choose to complain, or you can choose to become the flame holder for those who are losing their light. I chose the second, and that choice kept my dream from burning out. By now, someone might ask a strong woman like you, do you even know how to love with such a successful career? What about love? An innocent question, but it pierced deeper than any criticism I'd ever received. I had loved before, and I once thought, if I could just soften a little, be a little less accomplished, stay quiet more often, maybe I could keep that person. But then I realized, a woman who once survived cold nights, who was once locked out, who was once called trash, she cannot be with someone who makes her feel small all over again. I've met men who loved me until I succeeded beyond them, men who held my hand, but only to pull me down to the version of me they could control. I've received flowers paired with whispers like, "When will you start living like a normal woman?" And then I met Ryan Cruz. We didn't meet in a romantic haze. We met during a panel on post-traumatic skin therapy. He was a keynote speaker, young, handsome, sharp, but not there to impress. The first sentence he said on stage made me look up. Skin doesn't react to the first product you apply. It reacts to the first emotion you try to hide. We didn't begin with a confession, just a message at 11 p.m. about a complicated case, and I replied with quiet grace, "Thank you for not walking away when others weren't ready to be touched." Love didn't arrive like fireworks. It came like a warm glass of water on a cold night, simple but life-saving. Ryan didn't try to heal me. He didn't show up to bring me back to being a woman. He came to remind me, strong women don't need saving. They just need someone who doesn't leave when they're tired. I was still me, running operations, giving speeches, building a brand. And he was still him, the man behind the curtain, placing a hand on my shoulder before I walked on stage and saying, "Own the room. You're the reason they're all holding their breath." I once believed love was a reward for those who were gentle. Now I know true love is the reward for those who've lost everything, yet never lost the belief that they deserve to be loved completely without conditions. New York in early fall isn't freezing but breezy enough to stir even the steadiest hearts. Madison Method TM, the healing-focused skincare brand I founded, was officially launching. It was my child, born from a damp apartment, from sleepless nights, from doors slammed in my face, from cold nods in boardrooms. It was a dream no one drew for me, and no one believed I had the right to reach. I woke at 4 a.m., checked the slide, stage lights, podium setup, and even the bottle of water next to the mic. The 35th floor of the Grand Soho Hotel was flawlessly prepared, cream leather chairs, warm lights, pearl backdrops, over 300 guests, dermatologists, journalists, investors, influencers. They didn't come to hear just another pitch. They came to see if a girl who rose from nothing could truly build something. I stood behind the velvet curtain, peeking through the slit. Everything was perfect, the plan, the people, the atmosphere, except for one thing. The front left seat, where I'd kept a space open, remained empty. No one noticed, but I did. Ryan wasn't there. I didn't blame him. He was in Singapore now, the regional director for a global wellness group. Big project, huge opportunity. I was the first to tell him, "Go, don't look back. I'll be fine." But in that moment, standing at the edge of a lifelong dream, just before the spotlight hit my name, all I wanted was one pair of eyes, not to judge, not to praise, not to analyze, just to see me. I walked onto the stage. My heels struck the wood floor with purpose, but each heartbeat cracked open old layers inside. Spotlights blazed. The mic was cold. The room silent. I began speaking. No stumbles, no fear. Each word is drawn from blood and loneliness. I told the story of Madison Method not as a beauty brand, but as a recovery process, not just for skin, but for the sense of self-worth buried under trauma, stress, fear, and prolonged silence. I told them about the Bronx slums, the triple-locked door at night, the first time I ever stood inside a bright, polished spa, only to overhear, "She only got in because she saved someone." Not because she's good. The room was still, and then applause, standing ovation. They looked at me like I'd just done something miraculous, but I stood still, heart still hearing the empty chair. I bowed, smiled, prepared to exit the stage. Then a voice rang out, deep, warm, without a mic, yet clear enough to halt the entire room. You've learned how to live without needing anyone. But would you let someone live beside a woman like you? I turned. Ryan, standing at the rear entrance of the hall. White shirt, navy blazer, hair slightly tousled by New York's autumn wind. No spectacle, no script, just walking forward. Each step erased 6 months of distance. He didn't climb the stage. He stopped just below, looked up like the world had vanished around us. I used to think a great man was someone who paved the road, who led from the front. He said, voice steady, without force. But then I met Madison, a woman who needed no one to pave the way, yet made me want to walk beside her all the way. I left. I saw the world. But I've never met anyone who made me want to come back. Not because she needed me, but because I know I'll never be the best version of myself without her beside me. I didn't speak. I stepped down one stair at a time. No rush, no grand gesture, no background music. I placed my hand on his chest, right where his heart raced, and asked, are you sure my path isn't smooth? My light, it burns hot. He held my hand not tight, just enough to let me know he was real. Because you're the first flame that didn't burn me. You made me want to burn with you. We didn't kiss. We didn't embrace. There were no flowers, just 2 hands clasped in a room full of people where suddenly no one else existed. True love doesn't come to soften you. It comes to remind you that you've been strong alone for too long. And now you deserve someone not to rescue you, but to walk beside you through storms or spotlights. I didn't get married in a castle. There was no princess gown, no orchestra playing grand symphonies. I walked to him in a small garden behind the first branch of Madison Method Team, a place that was once a damp, forgotten storage unit. I had scrubbed those walls myself, repainted the peeling paint, wiped down the rusted windows, and cleared out every splintered beam. I walked barefoot, wearing a white dress as light as mist, holding a bouquet of dried lavender. Because I believe that what once withered can still release fragrance if we lift it gently enough. Ryan stood there, no tuxedo, no bow tie, just him, simple calm, and with eyes that had been waiting not just for this wedding day, but for every moment when I once thought I couldn't go on. The officiant asked if I would say yes. I didn't say I do. I looked into the eyes of the man who once let me go so I could fly toward my dream. And I remembered the moldy apartment in the Bronx, the nights I held back my tears, afraid someone might hear. The first uniform I received was as an intern, and the first hand that touched my scars without asking, aren't you ashamed? And I whispered, I don't just say yes, I choose. I chose the man who saw me even before I became someone. I chose the one who didn't rescue me, but waited while I stood back up. I choose you today, tomorrow, and even on the days when I can't love myself. We didn't kiss, no one clapped, there were no fireworks, just a breeze, and a few tears on the cheeks of those who knew how long it took for us to arrive exactly where we belonged. After the wedding, life didn't become perfect. I still run a spa chain, now expanding internationally. Ryan founded a mental wellness center for men because he believes men need safe spaces to be vulnerable without being shamed. We didn't agree all the time, but we learned how not to leave when the other was less than perfect. 3 years after our wedding, we welcomed our daughter, Leona Cruz. I remember the first time I held her, I didn't cry. I simply whispered, sweetheart, if one day the world makes you doubt your worth, Remember this. Your mother was once kicked out of a home, once treated like she didn't belong, once worked without pay, once had the whole world turn its back on her. But she's still here, loving living and building a world where you won't have to earn love by being tough. On Leona's 5th birthday, I brought her back to the Bronx, where it all began. We stood in front of the old studio, now the headquarters of the Madison Leadership Institute, where I mentor young women from foster homes and shelters. My daughter looked up at me and asked, "Mommy, how do you know you're good enough to teach other people?" I knelt down, placed my hand over her heart, and said, "I don't know if I'm good enough. I only know that when you have nothing, you can still choose to live in a way that one day someone else won't have to suffer what you once did." If there's one truth I've learned from this entire journey, it's this. I don't need early recognition. I just need not to break. I don't need love to come fast. I just need to keep my heart long enough to give it to someone worthy. I don't need a fairy tale. Because I am the miracle, the girl who was rejected before she even had a chance to cry. It is now the woman who makes others dare to live more kindly, love more deeply, and rise again when it feels like there's nothing left. I used to think there were doors in my life that should never be reopened. The door where my mother once walked away. The door where I was seen as a burden in my earliest years. The door to a childhood without lullabies, without goodnight wishes, without a single embrace. But the farther I went, the more I understood. Not everyone who leaves does so out of hatred. Sometimes they simply don't know how to stay. When I became successful, my mother still lived in a small rental on the outskirts of the city. She didn't use social media. She didn't follow the news. She never called to ask, "Are you okay?" But one day, I stood at her doorstep. No reporters, no staged gratitude videos, no audience. I was just there because I wanted to personally bring her back into a life she had never known, because she had given me the first and most important thing, life. I didn't expect her to break down in tears and hug me. I didn't need her to say, "I'm proud of you." She was still herself, quiet eyes avoiding mine, voice stiff, when she took the keys to the home I bought for her. She simply asked, "Can I stay here?" I held her hand, thin, calloused, hardened by a lifetime of surviving wind, and gently said, "You don't have to ask. This is your home now." I bought her a small apartment with morning sunlight near a park, with a shuttle to the clinic and supermarket. I got her a simple car, easy to drive, and hired a caregiver to help with the house. She never said thank you, but each time I visited, I saw she had folded my clothes with care, stocked the fridge with foods I liked. And once, I saw a photo of me, clipped from an old magazine, laminated and placed in a cheap plastic frame on her desk. I turned away, not wanting her to see me cry, because I knew she didn't know how to say, "I love you." But I had heard love in all the small things. I didn't forget the uncle who took me in, the day I was thrown out of my house, the one who brought me home, even though his wife protested, even when no one believed I'd ever become anything. Now I helped him buy back the old house that was once our shelter. I made sure my younger cousins studied at the best schools. I didn't just pay tuition. I sent trust so that no one in this family would ever again feel like the extra mouth to feed. I didn't do it to repay. I did it because when you're strong enough, you no longer need to cling to pain just to remember how much you've endured. I only need to remember one thing. If someone once held on to me when the world turned its back, then today I have no right to turn my back on anyone. And strangely, helping my mother, my uncle, those who once hurt me, and those who silently protected me, was what made my life feel complete. Not because I had paid every debt, but because I no longer let pain define who I am. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means that when you remember it, no longer hurts. It means returning, not to reclaim anything, but to give. The room was unusually quiet. Studio lights glowed down on the glossy stage. The host was a high-profile name, someone known for interviewing presidents, movie stars, and tech billionaires. And today, they invited me, Madison Cruz. Madison, you've become a symbol of from rock bottom to the top. But if we're being honest, what has success really cost you? I looked into the camera. No performance, no polite smile. I answered unscripted, the greatest cost isn't time, it's not money. It's the loneliness that comes when people stop loving who you are and only love the image they've built of you. I shared how there were nights when I gave speeches to rooms of 300 people, standing ovations echoing behind me. But later, I'd sit in my hotel room eating instant noodles. And no one texted, "Have you eaten?" I talked about the time I invested in 3 branches at once. Everything went wrong. I had to choose, pay my employees or buy medicine for my mother. I chose my team, came home. My mother said nothing. She just flipped the rice cooker lid closed. I ate that leftover rice and felt like her daughter again. The host asked, "What about kindness? You've helped so many people. What do you think makes kindness feel so costly these days?" I sat up straight. For the first time in the program, no one in the audience lifted a phone to record, because kindness without power is mistaken for weakness, and kindness without a voice is easy to exploit. But I believe if you stay clean long enough in a dirty world, eventually your kindness becomes the one thing that doesn't need to shout anymore because everyone will be listening. The host paused, then quietly asked, "Have you ever felt regret? Like, maybe if you'd been colder, sharper, things would have gone smoother." I shook my head. I don't regret being kind. I only regret that too many people believe cruelty is the only way to survive. The show ended with no applause, no tears, no dramatic music. Only a silence so deep it felt like each person in the audience had suddenly remembered who they were before the world told them to be someone else, just to win. Backstage, a young woman ran up to me. She handed me a piece of paper. Not a resume, not a thank you card, just one handwritten line. "Thank you for being successful and still having a heart." And maybe that was what I had always hoped to receive after everything. You might forget her name. You might not remember every detail she went through. But please hold on to one thing. You don't need a special background. You don't need anyone's approval. You don't need luck to rewrite your own story. You only need one thing: don't give up. Madison's story isn't told to make you emotional. It's told to remind you that in a world filled with noise, cruelty, and ambition, you still have the power to live kindly. And that in itself is a form of success. You don't need to be someone famous. You just need to become someone who, when you look back, can say, "I wasn't perfect, but I lived with heart." For me, the one who told her story, the moment that left me speechless, wasn't when Madison succeeded. It was when she chose to return, to forgive, to care for the ones who once hurt her, to stand behind the lights and quietly keep the flame burning for others. Because in the end, what defines a person is not where they rise to, but where they choose to stop, so someone else can rise. If this story touched something in you, leave a comment below, because maybe your words will be the light someone else needs in their darkest hour. And if you want to keep following stories like this, moving, honest, deeply human, hit like, share, and subscribe to Toch Story now. Here, we don't tell stories to entertain. We tell stories, so someone out there wants to keep living. Toch's story, where small stories create big change.